All right, well, let's call this party to order. Welcome to the September, yes, I saw her push the button. September 16th MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. We'll call that to order. We're going to have a prayer by Pastor Jim Harp, and we're going to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning to pray. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, I thank you for this opportunity once again this morning, Lord, to come together with this group of people, Lord, that you have placed in leadership over our county, making decisions for the future and welfare of our county. Lord, we thank you for them. And God, we thank you, God, that you told us in your word that we are to pray for those in authority. In fact, in 1 Timothy chapter 2, the Apostle Paul says, I urge then, first of all, that requests, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for everyone, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all goodness and holiness. This is good, and it pleases God, our Savior. And so, God, we thank you for that. And Lord, I pray as they meet, as they talk about things, plans, situations before us, Lord, I pray for wisdom. I ask God you give direction. In light of what we've seen happen in our area in the last 24 hours, Lord, I pray for protection for each one, for them, for their families, Lord, for those around them. Lord, we just pray for your grace and your peace and your protection to be on each one. And I do pray for that wisdom, Lord, that you would grant them according to your word, wisdom that seeks your direction and your guidance. And so, God, I thank you for all these things this morning. Pray that this meeting today would just be representative, Lord, of your presence and your purpose and your power in each of their lives, and that our county, Lord, would benefit from all that you want to do in and through them. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if we can do a roll call.
Commissioner Doug Smith is excused. Commissioner Sarah Hurd is excused. Commissioner Stacy Heatherton. Here. Commissioner Harold Jenkins.
Here.
Commissioner Edward Campy.
Here.
Commissioner Christopher Collins is excused. Commissioner Kaya Mayfield.
Here.
Mayor Susan Gibbs Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Sean Reed. Here. And we have a quorum.
And I just wanted to mention something for the rest of the board, that we do not have our chair or our vice chair here today, so that's why I've asked Commissioner Jenkins if he could please chair this meeting, so if it's okay with you all, for him to continue, because like I said, we don't have our chair or vice chair here this morning.
I will allow it.
Okay.
Wow, great.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, and now that I just want to introduce Sean Reed. He's a new member of our board, new member of City of Stewart Commission. So, welcome. With that, I will take a motion to accept the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll move.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to take that as we moved by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, how about we approve the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Gibbs, or Councilwoman Gibbs. Thomas, sorry. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I've only known her for my whole life, and I don't know her name, but anyway. We have one public comment. Mr. Zach Gaza. Come on. That's what it says on my agenda.
Item F.
Oh, you want to talk? Okay, never mind. Sit down. We're good. Just remind me, probably I'll forget. Okay. Item 8A, MPO bylaws amendments.
Okay, yes, I just want to introduce a couple of people myself. Margie Tamblin is the MPO's new senior planner. She's going to focus on not only the bicycle pedestrian facilities, but also the transportation improvement program, so you'll hear from her in a few minutes. And then also Brittany Trung is our temp, and she will be recording the meeting this morning. I know you all are familiar with her because you've been getting emails from her as well. So the first item on the agenda are the MPO bylaws. They're very straightforward. They reflect the apportionment plan that you all approved last fall that I'm going to be talking about later this meeting, and also the governor's letter of approval of adding the fifth county commissioner on the MPO board. So it's the bylaws, the two changes is to change the board from an having 8 voting members to 9, and also from having 4 county commissioners to 5. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. This is pending legal review. I did talk to Sarah Woods. So there are just a couple of things but I can't see any problem with it, but just as an FYI. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions, and staff is recommending approval of this item.
Commissioner Campy.
Move staff's recommendation of approval pending legal's approval.
Okay, any comment to that? Seeing none, then we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. B,
This item is the fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 29 Transportation Improvement Program, our TIP roll forward amendment, and I will turn this over to Margie to present.
Good morning, everyone. Just to kind of give a standard breakdown of the roll forward report, it's basically to make sure that FDOT's work program matches our transportation improvement program, and it's using all the funds that weren't used in the previous fiscal years, it's rolling them forward into this fiscal year. And just to give you an idea of what that amount would be, I'll roll down here. So it's about $12 million, and there's a breakdown between highways, transit, and turnpike. About $11 million in transit, and that's not just to this area, it's to the Port St. Lucie metro area in total, so it's not all spent in this region. About $928,000 to highways, and about $166,000 to turnpike improvements. Does anyone have any questions? And we're recommending this item for approval.
any questions for staff? Oh, Commissioner
I
Heatherington.
don't have any questions, but pending, I don't know if we have to take public comment, but pending public comment, I will move staff's recommendation for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Mayfield. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. C, tip modification.
C is the fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 29 TIP modification. I will let Margie present this as well.
Essentially, the Florida Department of Transportation has updated the southeastern project limit for the State Route 710, widening. So it was from from FPL Access Road to County Road 609 Alapata Road, and it's being extended a little further to Southwest Van Buren Avenue. It just extends the project a little bit longer, so the roadway will transition from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. It's just a more natural transition there. We're recommending this item for approval. Any questions on that item? And I can show you a map too.
Yes.
This one makes
That's what I'd like
a
to
lot of
recommend.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, this orange line here is,
Van Buren.
yep, the orange line is the original project, so FPL Access Road on Southwest Warfield Boulevard to Alapata, and the green line is the extension to Southwest Van Buren Road. Yeah, just a little bit further of an extension there.
Because, if I might add, because that little green line, it's still 2 lanes.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right, that one's easy. Motion?
I will move staff's recommendation for approval.
And I will second that.
And do we have any comment? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Councilwoman Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That was D.
Item D is fiscal year 26 through fiscal year 30 list of project priorities. As you know, the LOPP, or the list of project priorities, is the first step in the TIP process. You all did approve the fiscal year 26 through fiscal year 30 list of project priorities at the last meeting, but we do have a modification that Margie will tell you about.
And this modification is just in reference to the previous item. It's updating those project limits for the State Route 710 Southwest Warfield Boulevard to make sure it includes 2 Southwest Van Buren Boulevard, or Van Buren Avenue, instead of Alapata Road. Any questions in regard to that one?
No, at all.
And we are asking for approval for that item as well, or recommending approval.
And I will make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
I will second it.
Okay, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, motion by Commissioner, or Councilwoman Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E, functional classification update.
Yes, this functional classification update, this is actually another housekeeping issue, if you will. The items, approval items before this one were kind of housekeeping issues as well. This functional classification, however, is a housekeeping issue that comes up once every 10 years. So we do have FDOT here with the consultant to present the urban boundary functional classification map and tell you about the process that we've gone through and how we've got to where we are now. So with that, oh, hi, Tony. I'll turn it over to FDOT.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Tony Norat. I'm the planning supervisor for Florida Department of Transportation District 4. And I'll be presenting, along with our partners from Caltran, the functional classification. So what is a functional classification process? The functional classification process is a method that's used to categorize roads based on how they serve transportation needs. It determines whether a road is mainly local traffic, connecting regional areas, or facilitating long-distance travel. So why does this matter? FHWA requires roads to be classified properly because this classification determines if they can receive federal funding for improvements. It's like a classification that roads need to meet to get financial help. This class.
Do you want to move forward the presentation forward? Do you want to move by the presentation? Yeah. There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, so not all roads are eligible for federal aid. The classification helps determine which roads can receive funding, especially those that serve more than just local traffic. So what's everyone's role in this process? So at first, FDOT conducts the initial review process and proposes classifications alongside our consultant partners from Caltran. The cities and county agencies then review and either concur with or recommend changes to their proposed classifications within their jurisdictions. At that point, the MPO approve the classifications by signing the official maps and finalizing the process at the regional level. It then comes back to FDOT and FHWA, which we provide the final approval by signing off on the maps and ensuring all classifications align with the state and federal standards. So now I'll go ahead and pass it off to our partner from Caltran, Jenny Lelou.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning, board members. My name is Janalia Liu, and I'm here together with Tina McKinney. We've been assisting the DOT and collaborating with the MPO and all the municipalities to come up with this hopefully final product, which is the functional classification, which started, as Tony mentioned, with the urban boundary adjustment. Oops. So what best describes functional classification? I think the different types of functionalities, or when it starts with your arterials and it goes towards your locals, is this graph that you have on your left-hand side. So pretty much when we talk about arterials, we're talking about more mobility. We're talking about longer lengths, higher speeds. When we're talking about locals, we're talking about more access to residential areas. We're talking about those residential streets. And then in between, you have your minor arterials and your collectors. So the first step of this process, sorry.
Want to go back?
Yeah, two.
Click
Thanks.
Click on PowerPoint one more time.
That one. So the first step of this process, as you know, we were in front of you back at the beginning of the year, and the urban boundary was approved by the board, by the TAC, and then by the board. So basically what we did was we adjusted or we aligned these roads with the new urban boundary. And as you can see here, you had some areas that you gain urban boundary, and there were some areas where the urban boundary was reduced compared to the 2014 urban boundary.
What is that?
And just to clarify that Port St. Lucie on there, that identifies the urbanized area. The name of our urbanized area,
Yeah.
our TMA, is the Port St. Lucie. That, yeah, it seems to throw some folks off. But that's why that's,
I thought we were hostile takeover.
yeah, no.
Future annexation.
We've gotten that comment before. It's not the first time.
Hope sounds.
So based on that first analysis, which was the alignment of these streets with the urban boundary, the result was you got more rural. The net change was 8.7 miles of rural. And this trigger, so some of these roads, you kind of lost federal aid because there were either local roads or there were minor collectors. So then we're talking about 3.139 miles that went from urban to rural. And that's the reason why you lost this eligibility. And they were removed from the federal aid eligibility. And you can see those roads on the bottom. It's Southwest Farm Road and Southwest Silver Fox Lane. And that adds up to the 3.139 miles. So the second step of this process was to go ahead and analyze the entire roadway network and pretty much see the possibilities of changing the functionality of these roadways, whether we're going from minor collectors to major collectors. It was either an upgrade or some of them could have been a downgrade. And then to do that, we had to go ahead and resort to the guidelines, which is you require certain purposes. To meet certain purposes, when you have your principal arterials, you have to have more than two purposes. In the different, it has to be interstate and regional commerce. You have to have access to major public facilities. You have to have access to minor public facilities. So pretty much you have to comply with more than two of those purposes. And then your minor arterials is one. And then so on, when you move into your major collectors, you have more than one, and then your locals is pretty much a one purpose, which is, it has to qualify as a local road. So pretty much the evaluation of the second step of the process, this is what the results were. And you can see here that we have a grand total of changes from one functionality to the other, whether it was an upgrade or we went ahead and put in a lower functional classification. It was 25 miles that changed functionality based on the second part of the process. So the third part of the process was looking at these local roads and making sure that these local roads did not qualify as local roads anymore. So with the possibility of bringing them up to a minor collector. But in your county, we had not only a one-step jump, but we have a two-step jump, which was from locals all the way to major collectors. And that triggered a result of, to minor collectors of 3.550 miles, and to urban major collectors to 2.786. So these are the roads that were added into the system, from local roads to either a minor collector or to a major collector. You didn't have any jumps from a local to an arterial. So pretty much I want to go into what's next on this process. So The process is, as you know, the urban boundary was already approved at the beginning of the year. We had already relayed this information to FHWA, and luckily they have approved all the changes within your county. So what's left right now is to receive your approval and then your signature on the maps, and then submit all this to FHWA for final approval. If you have any questions.
Any questions for staff? Well, okay.
Thank you so much.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board.
Motion to accept staff's presentation.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And I do want to thank FDOT and their consultant. They worked this was a very long process, and they were great. We added a lot of roads, as you could tell by the presentation, and they were very helpful, and it took a lot. So I really appreciate all your good work and thoroughness and helping us, not only the MPO, but the county staff and the city staff and the staff of all your municipalities worked on this together. So you won't hear about it again for another 10 years. So thank you.
Item number F is an informational item, Turnpike and I-95 Direct Connection Project update.
This is the Turnpike and I-95 Direct Connection Project update. As you know, they were here last spring and gave a presentation, and you all asked them to come back with the result of their public involvement process. They've had a couple of workshops and made some presentations to some local governments in this area. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Turnpike staff so they can get started.
Good morning, Martin MPO board members. Florida's Turnpike Enterprise appreciates the opportunity to come this morning and present.
Maybe point to Michael.
Sure. And present the feedback that we heard on this project. The proposed direct connection interchange between Turnpike and I-95 in Martin County. So we're going to not get into the details of the project again. We're just going to provide a brief project overview. We're here mainly to focus on the stakeholder and community feedback, and then what's next. Where are we in the project schedule? The graphic on the right shows where we are in the overall transportation development process, which is a PD&E study, which will then proceed into design. So the project is located, the study limits are just north and south of Bridge Road, and the purpose and need is to enhance safety, enhance emergency response and evacuation, but mainly to improve system linkage between the two facilities. These are the two alternatives that were presented as we went through the community and stakeholder feedback. They provided the same 4 direct connections, so that's northbound to northbound between the two facilities and southbound to southbound. Alternative 1 would have required some I-95 ramp modifications, and whereas alternative 2 does not, and both of them would have provided the same emergency access roads. So before the July 17th and 18th public information meeting, where we presented these alternatives for public input, we had a number of presentations starting in April to the MPO committees, then the board. We met with the county and fire rescue. Then we went to Palm Beach, their committee, just one, and then the board. We were asked to go to the Martin County Board of County Commissioners. Then we were asked to present to the Freight TAC. And then finally, Town of Jupiter Island before the public meeting. So we did that, and the next slides will explain what we heard. So at the Martin MPO committees, we heard general support for the project. There were some in attendance that favored and did not favor the bridge road access. And when I say that, that means Turnpike access, local access between Bridge and Turnpike. We were asked to accelerate the completion of the emergency access roads. When we came to the MPO board, again, we heard general support for the proposed direct connections. There was some discussion as to where the ramps would be located. There were additional discussions alternative that provide bridge access road. And we were asked to reach out to Town of Jupiter Island, and that's where also Martin County Board of County Commissioners. We were asked to do that, and which we did. Fire and rescue, general support for the project, emergency access. Right now, the northbound access is, we were asked to look at another option for providing northbound emergency access to the turnpike, which we are. Accelerated completion of those emergency access roads. So general support and accelerated completion of those roads, that's a running theme through this. Road safety on I-95 was discussed between Indiantown and Way Station, and we were asked to look at wildlife crossings, which we will. The study does include that. So Palm Beach, TAC and the board, again, general support for the project. It's important for connectivity, and then the impacts within Palm Beach were discussed, which there really isn't any. So they was just asking for clarification on what are the impacts in Palm Beach County along Indiantown, which is a reduction of traffic, really. Board of County Commissioners, we went to in May 21st, 2024. Overall support, some favored alternative 2, which is the least costly, the least impactful. The majority access not to provide access between Turnpike and Bridge Road. That safety between on I-95 between the Way Station and Indiantown Road was discussed, and we were asked about the timeline of the project, right-of-way impacts as well. Martin MPO to freight, support for the project. We explained the difference in cost between the two alternatives. When will this project be completed? We answered those questions. And then in June, Town of Jupiter Island Commission support. They asked for no new access between Bridge Road and Turnpike. The fact that the Turnpike widening that is planned for is needed. And we explained the difference in cost between the two alternatives. Now, what did the community have to say? We held those meetings. One was virtual on July 17th, and the in-person was held on July 18th of 2024. 22 people attended virtually and 16 in person. Elected officials in attendance, none, but we did have an aide, Samantha Rosenberg, aide to Tobin Rogers Toby Overdoff, attended the in-person. So we had comments, some virtual, some in person, some emailed me directly, so about 31 total comments. Some were concerned about property impacts, noise at the Florida Club community, which we had to explain is north of the study area. We had support for alternative 2 from about 4 individuals, support for alternative 1 from 1. And we had a lot of requests or a lot of discussion even at the in-person meeting that Bridge Road needs to be widened and capacity needs to be added. And we explained that that was out of our jurisdiction. We also had some requests for that access between Turnpike and Bridge Road. That was mainly from large landowners. We had about 2 comments requesting that local access, but the majority, which was from more residents, asked that we never provide access between Turnpike and Bridge Road. So that is what we heard from the community. So where are we? We are right now about to start what we call cost, risk, and value engineering. That's where a whole different set of engineers look at our concept and they come up to see if there's anything that could be changed to add value. So that's going to happen in late September going into October. And then we'll select the preferred alternative, and that's going to be a result of the environmental and engineering analysis and also what we heard from your community. And then so we'll prepare documentation on that preferred alternative and then take that to public hearing. But again, just like we did for the alternatives public information meeting, the aim is to present to here and to the local agencies before we take it to the public. So that will all happen in the first quarter of 2025. And I think that's my last slide.
It is.
Questions?
Commissioner Heatherington.
So if hopefully I understood you properly at the end there, this public information, these were only stakeholders? No. It has not gone out to the public?
Yeah,
That last dot said you're going to go out to public outreach now, or do you consider this information you're presenting as the public outreach?
Yeah, so we started with our stakeholders, which was the board, Palm Beach, Martin County, and then we ended, this is an actual public meeting. So July 17th, we had virtual, and then July 18th, we had in person. And the attendance is shown there, 22 and 16.
How many more public meetings are you?
One, that's the public hearing where folks can get up and actually provide their comment. It's more formal. So that's going to be held first quarter of 2025.
Because for a project that affects thousands and thousands and thousands of residents,
Yes.
31 comments doesn't even scratch the surface, if you ask me.
Yes, definitely. So those are who attended. We invited hundreds, and also we did social media outreach. We had signs at the service plaza, but we can't force people to attend. So those are the people who chose to be involved in the project.
They're gonna be hopping mad when they find out that there's a project in
15 years from now.
15 years from now. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Commissioner Campy.
Just, thank you very much for your presentation. Just as a reminder for people that might be watching you and hearing you today, but have not, excuse me, have not heard it in the past, can you give us an idea of, once all of the process is done, whatever version you come up with, when will the first cars be driving on it?
We don't know. So before this project is done, we're looking to fund design. And again, everything is pending the results of the PD&E study, because no build is always an option throughout the whole process. But we're looking to fund design and a safe, if everything was to proceed, and you know what? Let me say that we're looking to fund design in 2030.
Okay?
Yeah,
Fund design and
Fund design in the year 2030. So if we start from there, then it's about 4 to 5 years to construction. So this is like 2035. If everything was funded. But I heard someone mention priority. Same with Turnpike. Everything is funded based on priority. So projects move in and out. So there's always a chance of timeline being changed.
So just to reiterate then,
Yes.
if everything went perfectly well and
Yes.
everything fell into place, we're talking about 2034,
Yes.
2038.
Yes.
So approximately 14 to 15 years from now.
Correct.
So people don't need to get panicked that this is going to happen next year.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
Need a,
I have a public comment.
yes,
Okay.
Okay.
thank
That's
you.
it for me.
Mr. Gaza,
Thank
you are up.
Here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for hearing me this morning. My name is Zach Gaza. I'm the owner of the Hope Sound Farmers Market, which is going to be affected by either Alternative 1 or Alternative 2 by a land taking, either way. Speaking not as a landowner, but as someone who uses Bridge Road and uses the 95 connection daily, along with my family and extended family, I don't think that people know this is happening. I was at the virtual meeting, I was at the public meeting, the in-person meeting, and there was a very, very small community involvement factor, especially given how people look at like the Jonathan Dickinson golf course. That was a huge outpouring, and look at the difference that it made like that. Here, we're talking about FDOT literally building bridges on top of bridges at the southern entrance to Martin County. It's going to be a major project, a major construction project over years. Further, the DOT, it looks like they've done their traffic study through 2050. However, the MPO, I think the traffic study is currently through 2045, but the traffic study through 2050 is due in October, I think. Is that, I don't know. Anyway, it's my understanding the MPO does a new traffic study every 4 years. So we're close to having the MPO traffic study line up with the DOT traffic study within a month. And I do think that with, things have changed since 2020, the last MPO study. There's been development in Indiantown, development in Hobe Sound, where Bridge Road may have a different path moving forward through 2038 or 2035 or whatever. Yes, this isn't going to take place until then, but the community is going to look a lot different then. So to make these decisions based on 2020 plans that are going to affect through 2050, I really think that the MPO plan and the DOT plan should be aligned. I think that would be a benefit for the county, for the residents, for people who use Bridge Road, 95, and the Turnpike, just to make sure that everything is done properly. The last thing that I want as a Martin County business owner and Bridge Road user is to have construction of Turnpike, followed by construction 95, followed by construction of Bridge Road. We'll have 15 to 20 years of construction, and that intersection will be a disaster, and orange cones and loud, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good, don't disagree with you. With that was an informational item, so I guess you don't need anything other than,
Yeah, that was just an informational item.
okay? G,
Item 8G is the State Road A1A or East Ocean Boulevard roadway safety audit from east of Monterey Road to west of Evans Quarry Senior Bridge. When I found out that the DOT was doing a roadway safety audit, we participated as well as the City of Stewart and the Martin County staff. The roadway safety audits, as you will find out, are very streamlined processes. Because this is a section of an MPO priority, I did ask FDOT and their consultant to come and present to all the advisory committees and the MPO board today. As you know, your priority is from Kingswood up to East Ocean along Monterey, and then along East Ocean from Monterey to the Evans Quarry Bridge. Those are for safety improvements for bicycle and pedestrian safety. I do have some comments from the MPO advisory committees that I can share with you after the presentation, but just to be clear that the audit is, you'll find out the process of the roadway safety audit. The audit is completed, but the advisory committees had some ideas of what could be helpful as far as next steps. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tony, and he can tell you a little bit about their process.
Thank you. Again, my name is Tony Nord. I'm the planning supervisor. And I'm just going to get it started with a quick explanation, and then I'll pass it off to our safety administration team. First, I want to make sure that everybody understands this is an informational item. This is a new process that FDOT is conducting for RSAs or road safety audits. Kind of like a new concept. As Beth mentioned, it's very streamlined. This was initiated by the department. So although it crosses areas that might coincide with the list of priority projects, this is something that the department saw a need for, and we're implementing a new process where it's kind of streamlined, kind of like a rapid study. And the point of it is to make recommendations that we can implement immediately and right away. So although there might be other concerns that aren't addressed, that doesn't mean that the MPO or the counties can't request other studies to be done. As Beth mentioned, this study was already completed and recommendations have been made. And a lot of the recommendations that you'll hear now are already being implemented or in the process of being implemented. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Tracy Eugene.
Good morning, everyone. And so my name is Tracy Shi. I work for the
Hold the mic down even a little more. It's direct.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right, thanks. So good morning, everyone. And my name is Tracy Shi. I work for Florida Department of Transportation Safety Office. I'm the District Safety Program Engineer. And glad to be here today. And I'm here with our study consultant, Mr. Shelby Koch. We're going to present our road safety audit. And so what's a road safety audit? It's a formal safety performance examination of a roadway segment or intersections. And so Mr. Shelby Koch will present the RSA itself and our study findings and what we recommend. And so I just want to talk very briefly for like how we identify locations and what we do with this study. So before the RSA, we look at crash data, we look at roadway conditions to identify proper locations to study. And based on our resources, we decided to do one per county. We have 5 counties in District 4 for last year. And this year, we try to do 1 or more per county, so to look more roadways for safety. And after RSA, what we do with our findings, we don't let it sit there. We find a way to implement. We coordinate with our offices or our maintenance agencies, and based on the nature of the findings, we coordinate with our maintenance office or county traffic operation office to implement our findings. And as you may know, road safety audit is a multidisciplinary team working along the roadway, finding the opportunity for safety improvement. So sometimes it may result in further studies, because some of the recommendations, you may need some engineering judgment. So we will perform the further studies recommended from the road safety audit. As Tony mentioned, this is finalized, but it's not the end of the our channel to receive the concern. We appreciate your great concern and input and welcome. And if you have more questions and concerns, we'll make sure we look into it. Thank you. I'll pass to our consultant, Shelby Cole.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
So, as Tracy was alluding to, the word audit is very important in this process. Okay, so in the presentation, I'm going to go over very quickly the high-level definition of an audit versus a safety study. And this has also been an educational experience. So we've got a couple slides on what a roadway safety audit is and the origins, and then I'm going to talk a few high-level details, just glimpses into this actual roadway that we studied. But basically, as Tracy alluded to, the road safety audit is an independent multidisciplinary team. And what that means is part of our process is we are coordinating with the MPO, with the city of Stuart. We did have Martin County traffic engineering involved. So we had a group of 6-8 folks actually walking the corridor at the same time versus a traditional study, a traffic calming study or a speed study is by engineers, for engineers, and engineers of the audience. That's not the purpose of a roadway safety audit as far as the team perspective. But the other thing on the audit is it's broad enough to consider the whole roadway, meaning all aspects. Pedestrians, bicyclists, now electric scooters. We're actually thinking of those electric scooters, right? Because they're traveling 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, but they're using pedestrian facilities. So we've got to start thinking of all users. And then this is also a proactive approach. So DOT Safety Office has done a good job saying, let's be proactive. Let's find a list of identified corridors, district-wide, and every year we have funds for professional services to do these audits. And I think we have one already on the board. Discussions are 2025 for come back to Martin County for the next roadway safety audit. So this is a newer process, but that's why I'm very focusing on the word audit versus a study, okay? So again, back to the word study, though, it is big, heavy recommendations of robust solutions, including feasibility analysis. On a study, typically needs big funding behind it. A study needs a long-term plan, a longer time horizon. That's what usually outputs a study. An audit is immediate. That's what we're going for. What can we fix today within reason? So this is just a quick snapshot, and this is from an FDOT dissemination document they've developed for all agencies now, but this just gives you an idea of who's actually involved in this roadway safety audit. Okay? Now, this is the goal, and we're essentially going back to it. I'm focusing on the extent, what road users and what circumstances, what's happening in the real world. Now, this third bullet point is really the key. Short-term, low-cost recommendations, meaning what can we do literally in Q4 of 2024, Q1 of 2025? What contracts are available? So that's why this is a very streamlined process. So you see down below, this is designed from FHWA. This process by contract is 6 weeks. So this was the consultant got the notice to proceed, locations identified, we were off to the races. Engaged the MPO, sent out a couple emails, set up stakeholder meetings. This was a 6-week study. We said, we need immediate, short-term, low-cost recommendations to come out of this. Now, there's also another lesson learned that's come out of the roadway safety audits, and that is, what is the long-term, high-dollar recommendations? That's what's been inspiring, because this has started to say, wait a minute, are there additional studies that could be, should be, or need to be performed on this corridor? That's what is also spinning out from roadway safety audit. So a glimpse of the details, and I'm not going to walk through all the details, but a glimpse of it, as you can see at the very top, this was on the 2021 high crash segments list. So the mentality is a segment. And in this case, it's from the base of Evans Ferry Bridge west to Monterey, okay, along Ocean Boulevard. So carries approximately 27,000 vehicles, average daily traffic. Posted speeds 35, and I'll speak to that in a second. And also the functional classification and the context classification. We just identify these things. What are the facts? What are the facts of the roadway so we can understand what we're working with? Now, we were also aware of previous studies that the MPO had actually funded, and also the FDOT had funded as well. So very quickly, we had a pre-meeting in June, initial feedback from stakeholders. MPO is our point of contact. They know the roadway more than anybody else. They're planning, that's why they're planning organization. So we start with the MPO. We scheduled our field review, and we did a field review debrief with our notes. Now, as I mentioned, we had Martin County, Traffic Engineering, MPO, the RSA team, City of Stewart. In the future, we'd like to have, and this is an idea, feedback we received, we'd like to potentially have the Sheriff's Office, potentially from the motorcycle division, or a motorcycle representative. Okay, can we hear another perspective of the pavement conditions? Can we hear another perspective of slick striping from a motorcycle perspective? We also have the idea that feedback of potentially inviting other committees, other committee members, as having more representatives of local stakeholders. So for perspective, from a data side, back to a study, typically is very data focused and conditions focused. An audit, we said, well, we still need to include the data. So for perspective, for your knowledge, is the data set we looked at was 5 years, standard operating procedure. And for this corridor, in 5 years, we had 52 rear ends, 35 left turns, 20 side swipes. This was a higher crash segment, but this was not top of the list district-wide, but it was the top of the list from a segment perspective. So these, I'm not saying these are not normal numbers, but these are in the range of the top end of normal. Now, pedestrians and bicyclists, in 5 years, there were 4 pedestrian crashes, 4 bicycle crashes. Now, the bottom left, this is life-changing for the citizens. There were 3 incapacitating crashes. And what this means is these crashes were affected somebody's lives, meaning they probably left the facility in an ambulance and probably had an overnight stay in the hospital. Okay, these are serious. And fortunately, unfortunately they happened, but fortunately there were various crashes. They weren't the same type of incapacitating crash at the same exact location. They were different types of crashes. There was also 1 fatality, and we read the crash report, and this was eastbound, just east of Monterey, and there was actually a medical event, okay? And I bring this up because there was a medical event, and this person did lose their life, and the vehicle went off the road, crashed into an electrical pole, and there was a fatality. And I bring it up from a perspective of it was not a rear-end crash, it was not a right-angle crash, it was not a crash due to normal operation. So that is one other perspective. Now, listening to our stakeholders in the field, it was brought to our attention that there was another fatality, and we said, really, this was at Vista Pines on the northwest corner, and so we said, we did not see that exactly in the data for this time period at this location, so we went back and looked, and we noted that, and we put that in our study. And there was a pedestrian fatality, 2016 or 2017. A young man worked at one of the restaurants on the north side, and he was somewhere in the crosswalks, and he lost his life. And it was one of those, we didn't want to be so hung up on that 5-year data set. We said we need to make sure we look a little bit on the beforehand. Again, it's an audit. Now, very quickly, high level, here are the top 3 type of things we found and documented. Again, we're auditing the system. Quickly, we noticed maintenance of pedestrian facilities. This was corridor wide, but we were focused at the signalized intersections. And really, this is the truncated domes, the concrete surface areas at the corners, the pedestrian access. Example is a wheelchair access. We actually observed several wheelchair access at Vista Pines crossing northbound and southbound. And so we said, this is an obvious issue. Again, maintenance during an audit process. Another one we immediately noticed, and you can see right here in the middle, these little circles, these are crashes from the data sets. And what we noticed was the speed change coming westbound over the bridge. We drove the bridge. We recognized that the speed limit on the bridge, the speed shifts, it downshifts. We recognize the speeding coming over the bridge. It's a human nature. It's the speeds are elevated coming westbound off the bridge. So this was an example that our audit audited this, and we have recommendations, and I'll speak to that. But this audit actually is going to inspire potentially a study, a speed study along along Ocean Boulevard, across the bridge and east of the bridge. So that's what the audit does, is inspires things to look at with additional funding and additional resources. And then the last one, these are just quick observations, was pavement striping, corridor wide, raised pavement markings, and faded crosswalks. And as a traffic engineer, this is near and dear to my heart, because from my perspective is we need to educate that driver. Where should they be stopping? Clean, crisp stop bars. Where should that pedestrian be crossing? Clean, crisp, painted crosswalks, meeting DOT standards. So these were observations. We took, I think, over 175 pictures on the corridor of various things that could be updated. So very quickly, these are part of our recommendations, okay? As you can see, these are all FDM, Florida Design Manual standards. We recommended new maintenance of the surfaces with new, detectable warning surfaces. We also recommended potential signage coming across the bridge. There was even a case where there were two signs on Ocean Boulevard, a street name sign and a speed limit sign, could be reversed. It sounds petty, but at the same token, as we observed that and said, these signs are backwards. One should be before the other. Those are the kind of quick, short-term reactions and actions we're looking for. And then also under roadway and pavement striping, an upgrade to the pavement striping corridor wide. I'm not going to walk through this, but this is a snapshot of the details, and this is actually in the study. On the left is how we look at a system from a corridor perspective, and this is the level of detail we give. And on the right, these are specific at the intersection type of issues we were looking through and finding. Okay? All this is in our report and is documented. We just want to share of this is the lens and how we document basically the findings. So as I said, this is a streamlined process, started June 6th plus or minus, and we wrapped this up, I want to say mid-August, met our timelines. DOT's looking into various options, but we are right now in step 7, preparing formal response, which is the stamp signed, engineering stamp signed report, and that is in. Now, this is where it's interesting because incorporate, implement, and findings, this is the now what, okay? This is DOT looking and saying, do we have a a push button contract that can go and fix these pavement markings? Do we have a consultant, which consultant contract can do a speed study? Which consultant contract, is there a request for a traffic calming study? So this is where it starts the process in the DOT bigger system. And this is essentially where we're on step 8. And really one of the things we're learning is, that's why this is the difference between an audit and a study, is it's inspiring ideas for the bigger picture for the next 2 years, 3 years, but as well as what can we do today? And the wheels are in motion in a couple of things. And Esther, as Tony had mentioned, is we're looking at what options can we fix quarter 4, quarter 1, ideally in 2025. So do we want to take questions? You had some, I think you had a comment.
I didn't know if you all wanted to have questions first, or did you all want to hear what the advisory committee discussions were on this first, or I didn't?
Advisory committees. Listen to what they got to say first.
Okay. All 3 advisory committees, the Citizens Advisory Committee, Technical Advisory Committee, and Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee all did accept the report, but they did have a bit of discussion and what they also that they would like to see moving forward with this area, or next steps, if you will. The Citizens Advisory Committee very much wanted the speed limit on the bridge to be slower, with their concern that people, when they're coming down the west side of the bridge, they're not going a lot more than 40 miles an hour. They also talked about, even though this wasn't within the project limits, but it is part of the MPO priority, is the intersection of Monterey and East Ocean. When people are coming north on Monterey, going to make the left or right onto East Ocean, even if they have the red light, they don't seem to stop. They just keep going, and they make a right, and there's a pedestrian crosswalk right there, and that was a big concern for them. They did suggest if there are further studies, like a speed study, that FDOT should include, or whoever's doing the study should include, the surrounding businesses and neighborhoods as far as public involvement. They felt that was very important to hear, because those populations see and are using the facility all the time. The technical, that was from the Citizens Advisory Committee. From the Technical Advisory Committee, they really recommended fresh striping along the segment. They said that would be helpful to raise awareness for the drivers and pedestrians so they know where they need to be. And also, they did pass a motion that recommending that FDOT do a future speed study for the entire length of the project limits of the roadway safety audit, and to extend it along Evans Quarry Bridge to the east side of the Sewell's Point and Sewell's Point Road and East Ocean Boulevard intersection. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee had quite a few comments. They were very concerned with the bike ped safety in this area. They suggested cameras and citations for the intersection that I just mentioned, the East Ocean Boulevard and Monterey Road, thinking that people just don't stop for that red light. If they're turning right, they just, it's a continuous motion. They keep going right. There was conversations about a mid-block crossing across from East Ocean Mall, going north across the East Ocean to like the Dunkin' Donuts subway area. The MPO's traffic study that was developed in 2014, as well as the master plan that FDOT developed, both address a mid-block crossing in that area and how that it would improve safety, because right now people are crossing the street just kind of at any point, and that would kind of give people a safe facility with a hopefully mid-block or median refuge for safety reasons. They talked a lot about near misses, even though the crash data may not justify or warrant certain safety improvements. There are a lot of near misses that are not reported, if you will, in that area. The BPAC also talked about the concern about the speed on the bridge. And they also mentioned that the lanes are very wide in this area, that narrowing the lanes and protecting the bike lanes would definitely help the safety along this segment of roadway. They did say that left turns seem to be just kind of all over the place. Sometimes when people are making left turns, it's very hard to see in all directions. And so that obviously is dangerous for the drivers as well as bicycles or pedestrians in the area. And they talked a little bit about the segment west of the Monterey East Ocean intersection, which is actually owned from the county, from Palm Beach Road to Monterey Road along East Ocean Boulevard. They felt like a traffic study in that area would also be helpful. They don't feel like that there's a safe mid-block, a safe area to cross the street. And we had a couple of public comments actually at the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee with residents saying that they actually sometimes get in their car and drive across the street instead of walking across the street or letting their children walk across the street to their friends' houses on the other side. So I just want to give you all because there was so much conversation about this particular study, I wanted to pass that on to you all so you all would be aware of it. And after you all have a chance to kind of talk about what sounds good or what are your concerns. Sometimes you direct staff to write a letter or to give this information in a letter form with the chair's signature to the FDOT to let them know that, this is still a priority. And, hats off to the board for keeping this on their priority list every year. This was probably one major reason why FDOT actually did this roadway safety audit, because they knew it was a concern for the community. I mean, maybe it was a high crash segment, but the fact that it's been on your list for 10 years is a good indication that there are some concerns in this area. So with that, I'll turn it over to you all for any questions or comments that you all have.
Okay, Mayor Gibbs Thomas.
Just a comment on this. I'm a very visual person, and the speed limit paving markings, to me, that's very impactful. I am more likely to see that because you're concentrating on the road, okay? At least I try to. And so I would be more apt to see that than to try to look up and see, you've got all these signs, which one's the speed limit, and you're just kind of concentrating on what's in front of you. To me, that's more impactful to have that speed limit on the road, so there's no way that you can't say you didn't see it.
I concur.
That's
Commissioner Heatherington.
Yes, I would say this particular area, having an audit on this is very worthwhile because it's been a constant concern. I've been on this board and the Board of County Commissioners for 6 years, and probably my first year, we had a couple town hall meetings, which I will gladly provide you for this audit of several hundred people at a time attending, and it was all about East Ocean, St. Lucie, Boulevard, and Monterey, and the way they interact with each other, the left turns from Monterey onto St. Lucie, the left turns from East Ocean going onto St. Lucie, and the fact that we've always tried to push as more major or more arterial roads, the traffic Monterey to East Ocean and not use St. Lucie Boulevard as a cutoff. So we've spent 5-6 years doing traffic calming on St. Lucie Boulevard, which included many of your recommend actions for the others. We've had speed feedback signs. We've done a speed table. We've done in front of the golf course there. I forget what they call. It's not a chicane, but it's some landscaping and yes, some. We've done pavement markings. We've done the painted speed numbers on there. And we have had some good result. We're working on doing that now south up by the banyan trees and beyond. But this area is a constant issue. I would also, the comment of no stop being at that red intersection, the intersection here of Monterey and East Ocean, no stop on red. I would say we should do something to enforce that because I get that from a lot of constituents that it's a pedestrian hazard. That's basically what the CAC and BPAC committee enforce. So, and I would agree with many of their comments as well. So I would just, as we go forward with this, I would include how this audit impacts St. Lucie Boulevard and Monterey and that whole particular triangle that connects together.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I just want to say I think it's great you're doing this. I travel this road very, very often. It feels like a little bit of a free-for-all over there. Bigger picture, which is not what you're doing, but I do want to, you mentioned this, the connectivity of the businesses is terrible. So I think that adds to a lot of the problems, which leads me to, you were talking about the small things you can do. If you can make those crosswalks even just more attractive, because then people are drawn to them, because there is a lot of the jaywalking, just completely walking across East Ocean and cars are turning left and right. So I think it's great you're doing this, and longer term, I know it's harder because that's private property, but somehow getting the businesses to, and then what was it, the BPAC that said the crossing by Dunkin' Donuts? I think that's an interesting, or a mid-block crosswalk, is that what you called it? I think it's an interesting idea because people are, the Fresh Market, Dunkin' Donuts, and the businesses back there, but I'm not sure how that would affect everything, so that would be interesting to look at. But thank you.
Commissioner Camping.
I would make the recommendation that Ms. Beltran made, that the suggestions, comments, and recommendations from our subcommittees be turned into a letter that the chairman could sign and send off, as Ms. Beltran has recommended.
Can I ask you one other question? When you're talking about the crosswalks, you're talking about the one by the, Beth, you had mentioned not that the Monterey, when you're talking about the crosswalks, you're talking about Monterey and East Ocean and the one by the gas station.
Yes,
Yeah.
all signalized. We
Okay,
looked
and
at
that's
every
the-
signalized corner.
That's the only other signalized spot, right, besides the two
and Vista,
endings?
and Vista Pines.
Yes,
So Vista Pines, correct.
yes,
Here's
yes, yep, that one.
and C, correct. And that's why when we did, and I didn't mention this, but we walked eastbound as a group, very focused eastbound, and then looking to the north, and then north and south. And then we got to St. Lucie, we crossed, and then we walked westbound, looked from different perspectives. And so when we did that, some of the results were all signalized intersections, all corners, all quadrants needed to be evaluated.
Okay.
So it was a full system, back to what you had said, of attractiveness, nice clean paint, bright signs, bright,
Because that intersection on Vista Pines is not utilized as much, and I think if that was made more attractive and more noticeable, people would utilize that more.
agreed.
Commissioner Campy.
I just wanted to pay you a compliment. During your presentation, I noticed that you did not refer to your notes when you were naming the streets and the bridges and the things, so that means you're obviously familiar with our community and the work. I'm assuming you're not a local. So I wanted to compliment you on making us feel that you knew exactly what you were talking about. So thank you.
Appreciate that. And give FDOT credit. FDOT said, embrace the MPO, embrace Beth and her office, embrace the stakeholders in the field. And
You
so
did, and
thank
I
you.
noticed. Thank you.
All right, so this is an informational item only also. Next item.
Did you want to make a motion to send for the staff
okay.
to?
My comment was a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay,
Thank you.
now we can move on to another informational item H. Beth.
This is the apportionment plan. Back in June, I mentioned that the MPO had received a letter from the town of Jupiter Island requesting to be a member on the MPO board. And that, as you all know, the board makeup, the MPO board makeup is determined by the apportionment plan. And the MPO board had approved the apportionment plan at their October meeting, and it was submitted to FDOT at the beginning of November. And we did get a letter from Governor DeSantis approving the apportionment plan. But anyway, at the June meeting, because this is a long process and the apportionment plan is updated every 10 years, you all requested that I come back at this meeting and give a presentation to give you some details about the apportionment plan process and update and kind of where we are with that. Like I said, we're actually finished with it in that we did get a letter from the governor approving the plan, which added the 5th County Commissioner on the MPO board. So this presentation is just to kind of walk you all through the update and the apportionment plan process. There may be people watching or here that are not familiar with the MPO. That's kind of what I run into a lot of times when I give presentations to different groups in the community. So I just wanted to give you a little history and information about that. We were formed in 1993, and we're governed by state and federal law, and it's a requirement for urbanized areas with a population of over 50,000 in some way to be governed by the MPO process. And the purpose of the MPO is kind of the big picture in transportation planning, helping to assist communication and coordination between state and local governments. And here's a picture of the MPO board that includes now 5 county commissioners, the 2 city commissioners, city steward commissioners, 1 as a commissioner from the town of Souls Point, and a representative from the village of Indiantown. Like I said, this is usually the first slide I show on all my presentations when I do MPO overview presentations to the community. After each decennial process with the census, the MPO must review the composition of their membership and their planning area boundaries, and that's in accordance to both state and federal law. The membership of the MPO should ensure that all areas of the metropolitan planning area are represented on the MPO board. The boundaries, so just to kind of clarify, MPOs, those organizations are nationwide. Like I said, any urbanized area that has a population of 50,000 or over, in order to get federal transportation funds, they have to be governed by an MPO. The boundaries in Florida, typically for MPOs, are the metropolitan, or the boundaries of the county. So our boundaries, if you will, for the Martin MPO are the county boundaries, and that's called the Metropolitan Planning Area. In other states, it's a little different. You think of states like Colorado, or with the city of Denver, or Arizona with the city of Phoenix. Those land use decisions in those states are not made at a county level like they are in Florida, and they're typically big metropolitan areas like Denver or Phoenix that expand from their city center. Florida has been developed a bit differently. And the MPO, apportionment plan, if you will, or the metropolitan planning area is determined by agreement between the MPO and the governor. So this is just a little chart just showing how it all fits together, the MPO with the local governments, because I think that's a lot of questions I get when I make presentations to the community. They're kind of concerned of what the role, if you will, of the MPO is, where no one gets elected to the MPO. You all get elected to local governments. And as part of those local governments, you all adopt comprehensive plans and approve capital improvement programs. And the MPO's work products, which the local governments appoint you all to be on this board, the MPO has required work products to get funding from the federal and state governments. Those are required to be consistent, what you all have already approved on your local government boards. So the MPO doesn't make any decisions about land use or land development. Our plans are required plans, but they have to be consistent, what you all have already approved at the local government level. And just also to, okay, so anyway, that's what this chart, if you will, is supposed to just identify, if you will. Here's the long-range transportation plan that we approve. It must be consistent with the comp plan. The comp plan and what drives, if you will, the local capital improvement program. As far as the MPO is concerned, our list of project priorities are identified in the long-range transportation plan, and those need to be consistent with the federal, with the state work program, as well as which mirrors the MPO tip, if you will. So with this particular board, so you all are making decisions about the transportation network and long-term planning, because when I talk about federal funding, if something that I do as far as to let people know kind of how much funding goes through the MPO process, is I'll show them a page from our tip that shows, like in our current tip, I think we have about $140 million. The 5-year work program is about $140 million, and only $8 million comes from local sources. The rest come from federal or state sources. And because of that, so the Martin County gets a lot of money from the federal and state governments for their transportation projects. But because of that, we have a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross requirements to follow in order to be eligible for those funds, and that's what MPO staff does. That's why the MPO is put in place, to make sure all that oversight and the requirements are put in or met in order to position Martin County to be able to receive those funds. So as far as land use goes, in the next 10 years, which is how often we update the apportionment plan, the MPO is going to be making decisions on our roadways, not only with the development that's happened, that's, been determined in Martin County, but also what's been happening in the surrounding counties, in particular the county to the north, St. Lucie County. St. Lucie County has a lot of development north of the county line, kind of in the north central part of the county, that are going to impact roads like Alapata and County Road 714 or Martin Highway. And so there may be some improvements needed along those roadways. And until recently, when the District 5 Commissioner got on our board, this was one area of the county that was not represented on the board. So there have been times in the last, couple of years, whereas things have come up kind of in this area, and a lot of times the board will say, let's ask the district commissioner. Well, the district commissioner was not represented on the board, and so we would have to wait till the next meeting to be able to get those questions answered. So that's why that was what was the justification, if you will, for having the fifth commissioner on the board. And that's with the MPO update. That's kind of exactly what it is an update after the census usually is to determine, is there a reason based on the criteria for the board membership to change? To my knowledge, the only time that's changed with Martin MPO, other than that designated time after the census, is when the Village of Indiantown became incorporated, because before they were incorporated, they were represented on the board by the county commissioner because they were unincorporated county. But once they became incorporated, there was no representation on the board, on the MPO board, from that area of the metropolitan planning area. So between the 2010 census and the 2020 census, this board did request from the governor that the Indiantown representative be a voting member, and he approved that. So there has to be, a good reason, if you will, to have any update. And this is just kind of pointing out that Newfield is also kind of in that north central area, that there may be some decisions made on the transportation network because of that development. So just to kind of go over the apportionment plan timeline again, if you will, this process started back in May of 2023. The MPOs had 180 days to submit their apportionment plan to FDOT. So the deadline was actually in November 14th of 2023. You all approved the apportionment plan to add the fifth commissioner back in October. It was submitted to FDOT on October 30th. And Governor DeSantis did approve the MPO apportionment plan on August 8th. So that's kind of the process, if you will, of kind of why we do what we do as far as this requirement. This kind of like the functional classification that you talked about earlier in the meeting does typically come before you all every 10 years. And the apportionment plan, like I said, that update does require a justification of why any changes need to be made to the apportionment plan. And just kind of as an FYI, back in 2010, there was a change to the apportionment plan, not because of the board makeup, but because of the counties of the boundary. Back then, I don't know if you all remember, the county actually had incorporated the area of Beau Rivage into Martin County. It had previously been part of St. Lucie County, but the two counties were working on an agreement which they came to add that area into Martin County. And so the boundaries of the metropolitan planning area changed right after the 2010 census. And so that was the change, or the update, if you will, after that census. And then this apportionment plan that you all recently approved, like I said, was to add the fifth commissioner to the MPO board. So like I said, that was a request. This presentation, hopefully it answered some questions. And when you all received the letter from the town of Jupiter Island, you kind of wanted to say, ask, kind of go through that process again. We only do it every 10 years, so let's kind of, talk about the development of the apportionment plan, why the changes were made the way they were in the past, and kind of what the requirements are. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all have. And if you all have any directions of how to respond to Jupiter Island, we can take those steps as well.
Any questions for staff?
Well, thanks for the presentation.
No questions. Well, sort of, kind of, almost. Historically, has the town of Jupiter Island, have they been asked in the past to participate?
Yes, yes. Actually, when the Village of Indiantown became incorporated, and there was a need to add them as a voting member, FDOT was concerned that there would be even number of representatives on this board, and they asked if there were any other representations or areas that would be interested. And so I did approach the town manager at the time, and they were not interested. He went back and he said that they were absolutely not interested in being.
So they've had the opportunity in the past?
Yes, yes, that we have asked them in the past. And I told in FDOT, I think historically they really like this board. They're and so they didn't seem that there was going to be any kind of like problem with having an even number on the board, even though they did ask the question. That's when I posed the question to the town manager of Jupiter Island.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. We have 8 minutes till our mandatory break. So item I is our 710 update.
I can't hear you.
I said I is our 710 update.
Okay, did you want me to answer do we want to answer the letter for Jupiter Island, or just,
We're avoiding that subject completely. I guess maybe we should probably.
or if we just want to go on to the 710 update?
Pleasure of the board. What do you think would be appropriate?
Or you all can think about it, and we can bring it back as, at the next meeting if you want, or.
That outlined the timeline, so we won't have another opportunity for a board member for quite some time.
Well, I think it would be rude not to reply on any, just kind of leave it hanging. I think a reply, and this is my opinion, hearing that they had the opportunity before we went through this plan process, and they will have an opportunity the next time, and this MPO board is aware now that they are interested, even though they weren't in the past. So it can be taken into consideration and happen on the next one, is my opinion.
I agree.
Which is?
That would be after the 2030 census.
Commissioner Campy.
In terms of verbiage, I would say I appreciate their request. However, in the last several years, we've added, as you mentioned, Indiantown and the fifth commissioner for very realistic and far-reaching reasons. The new field project, what's happening, well, Indiantown Incorporated, and now with everything else that's happening in Indiantown. I think also based on logistics of how Jupiter Island lays out in the county, I don't see that we would ask the governor and whoever else makes those decisions in his administration that we would now ask again, less than a year later, to add another person. I think.
They were already asked, so that's the.
Yeah, and in the past, they have been asked. I think for all those reasons, the makeup of this particular board is set at this time. In my humble opinion.
Okay. Direction for the letter?
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, absolutely.
710 update.
Yes, this item is a recurring item for this board about the MPO board's #1 priority project. And Ron Kariva is here from the district office to give you all an update on the improvements of 710.
Good morning, Ron Kariva, Florida Department of Transportation, District 4. I'm the Strategic Intermodal System Coordinator in the Planning Office. Just an update on all the various projects along 710 that are going on right now. 710 at Tommy Clements is currently under construction. That's still ongoing. It's on pace to be completed in November. That's for the left turn widening, and as we've talked about before to this board, immediately after that left turn widening project starts, the right turn lane can begin. So we'll be prepared to start that up as quickly as possible. In regards to 714 at 710, design has kicked off on that as well, and this is the intersection relocation project, relocating County Road 714 into Okeechobee County. That's ongoing. We have design just started, and right away is funded for that, and a few fiscal years out. The widening projects are basically under the same update. They have a different team working on it, but they also are funded for right away in the next few years, and they have started off on design, nothing holding anything back. Some news about it, we have been saying in the past that we've been trying to get the construction funding on a long-range plan. Central office did finalize their strategic intermodal system cost feasible plan, and it is tentatively funded for the widening for construction in the 2035 to 2040 time band. I know that's not the years you want to hear, but at least we have it on a long-range plan as of now. So what we're doing for now is we're continuing to look for opportunities to advance the project based on the actual schedule that we have. But as of right now, construction is not funded. Design's funded and ongoing, and the right-of-way process can start soon. I don't think I have anything else with those unless there was something particular else with 710.
Mayor?
Quick question.
Yes.
That right-hand turn lane that will start immediately after.
Yes.
Is there a projection on how long that will take to start or complete, or?
As far as the time that it'll take to complete, I don't know that. I can get that for you and update you. As far as starting, it has to deal with the paperwork of finishing off the other contractor. As soon as that is settled, they can start pretty much immediately. Because the plans have already been done.
Right.
They just need to start construction.
Okay, and we've already got somebody standing by in the
Yes.
wings that's going to do that.
Yes,
So we
that's my
really-
understanding.
So if it's completed in November, don't really know.
No, I'm sorry. I can get it. I'll verify it. I apologize not for having that information, but I'll see if we can get a better timeline. I just know there's some paperwork process that has to happen to get the other contractor to sign off, and then the other contractor can come in.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Comments from DOT? No comments from DOT? Okay, move on to comments from advisory committee members.
I don't think so.
We don't have any committee members. Okay, comments from board members? Any?
Thank you.
Sean, I got one comment. I would highly recommend you taking the MPO AC course. I did it twice because
Done it.
dealing with this is like drinking from a fire hose. And then when you go take the course, you're kind of going, well, I can't, so you don't understand how it's applied. So I actually did it twice. So I did it in the beginning to help me understand the meetings better. Once I understand the meetings better, then I got more out of it, then I took it again. So, and then I still don't understand a lot of it because it's, but I do, if you want to get something out of this
It's not the
process.
class's fault, though, right?
You know it's not, yeah. So anyway, I highly recommend it.
Is that where I get with Beth to sign up for something like that?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
It's in Orlando. It's kind of cool. They try to make it as fun as they can with the most dry information you can possibly have.
People in the audience don't think it's dry at all. They think it's fantastic.
Okay. And then now on to number 12, notes.
No, so that was just a response from Steve Braun, the district secretary. We had sent a letter regarding the expediting the State Road 710 project, especially with the funding of the construction phase. And they, as Ron had just mentioned, they are looking at different sources of how to fund that, each segment of the 710 project as best they can. It is an SIS facility, so that opens the doors for extra kinds of fundings available.
Okay. And with that, our next meeting is October 21st, 2024, and we are adjourned.